Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on this Thursday afternoon. I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy. I want to just review a couple housekeeping rules. You can ask any questions throughout the presentation in the question box. If time allows, we will get to those at the end. I've also received a couple questions via email, and we will also try and get to as many questions as possible. If your audio stops working, there's a lot of webinars going on these past few weeks. Just feel free to exit the presentation, come back in. If it's still not working, it's probably your computer audio. So just go ahead and call in. Each link has a website and a call-in link that you can use. I'm just gonna introduce our presenter and then we'll go ahead and get started. So Mr. Jeff Donafree is here, the Director of the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. He is in charge of coordinating and streamlining the state's workforce and economic development programs to meet businesses and labor needs and grow communities where all Michiganders have an equal opportunity to reach their fullest potential. So thank you so much, Jeff, for joining us today, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thanks. I'll go through a PowerPoint presentation here that gives a little bit of information about what we are doing here on unemployment insurance and small business support in particular. I think the thing we want to just emphasize for the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity is we really have three roles here. The first is to try to flatten the curve to stop transmission of this virus and disease. And we've done a number of things to try to make that happen with the governor's executive order, stay home, stay safe, and some of the activities that we've had here in the department. Second is really to start looking at how do we reopen and rebuild then once the stay home, stay safe order starts to come to conclusion. And then, of course, as we look at the future needs of our economy and the jobs that we're hoping to retain and create in the future. And then third is really to provide that emergency relief and support to people and businesses. And that's really what I'm going to go into here today. So let's take a look at it. So for unemployment benefits, we've seen just really unprecedented demand. I think many of us have watched the news on this, but more than 1 million Michiganders have filed for unemployment at this moment. That makes Michigan really the hardest hit state by percent of workforce impacted, with over a quarter of our workforce now having filed unemployment insurance claims. The claims are of course, higher in California, Pennsylvania, and New York, but those are larger states than us as well. We typically have about 5,000 claims a week, but 2 weeks ago, our highest claim number was 388,000. Just for reference here, during the Great Recession, the largest claims that we ever had were 77,000 in a week, and every week since the start of the COVID pandemic, we've exceeded that. Let's see. There we go. So benefits are paid out to people every 2 weeks who are eligible. There are 760,000 who've received benefits already, and we've paid out over 825 million. 300,000 will be eligible for their first payment next week. And during the Great Recession, it shouldn't be a dollar sign, but there were 363,000 people at the high point who were being paid out benefits. So you can see how much more in how short a period of time this has impacted us differently from even the economic event such as the Great Recession. Okay, then we look at who's eligible. And, for the governor's order for unemployment insurance, her executive order made sick workers and workers caring for loved ones eligible for UIA if they didn't have paid medical leave or paid time off. If they were self-employed, if they're independent contractors and gig workers, as of this week, those individuals are eligible to come in and apply as well. I'm sorry?
No, there's just an audio issue. You're fine. Keep continuing. Sorry.
Great. Low-wage workers and those whose UIA benefits had previously expired. If for some reason you had applied and been denied, and a lot of folks who were newly eligible under the CARES Act were initially had come in because we had not gotten authorization from the federal government to approve those benefits, they were denied. And so now they can go back into their accounts, though, and simply provide us the pandemic unemployment assistance information that's on the website, that's in their accounts, and we'll process that benefit. Over 240,000 people have done that already. So who's not eligible? I think this is important too, because what certainly we know is that individuals who are on paid sick leave or other individuals who can telework with the same pay, individuals who quit work without good cause to obtain those unemployment benefits, they would not be eligible for benefits. Workers are going to receive their benefits, no matter what day they filed, right? The benefits are backdated, and certainly the day you apply does not impact the amount of benefits you receive. And we're committed to making sure that every eligible worker in Michigan who applies for unemployment benefits is going to receive them. So the other things we've done are to make sure that we've waived requirements for in-person registration and work search. We've extended benefit payments from 20 weeks to 39 weeks. Much of that thanks to the CARES Act. And then the $600 in extra weekly payments that the CARES Act has put in place as well. We began sending those out on April 8th. There are individuals who will get the newly eligible workers will get their payments starting April 20th. We're one of the first states to do both of those. How you file? You can go to michigan.gov/UIA. That is the place to go and file. The phone lines, we've added huge amounts of staff to the phones at 866-500-0017, but we're still only getting to a small percentage of the people who are trying to file by phone. So if you can do so online, if you can have your questions answered online, go to michigan.gov/UIA. That's where 95% of people are filing, and it takes only about 20 minutes to file there. We have an alphabetical schedule too to make sure that our systems can handle the number of people coming online. So for those whose last name starts with A through L, you can go on to michigan.gov/UIA Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Those M through Z, you can go Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Just a sense of what you will need: Social Security card, driver's license or ID, the names and addresses of the employers you worked for over the last 18 months, and then some additional information about those employers. And then if you're not a U.S. citizen or national, you're going to need to have your alien registration card and then the expiration date of your work authorization. And then, of course, you have to certify biweekly that you're still unemployed and eligible to receive benefits. You can do that again online at michigan.gov/UIA. So for employers, there are a number of resources that we have. First, we're guiding people that if employers are laying off at this point, first off, we're waiving the UIA penalty for layoffs as a result of COVID-19. So there isn't a penalty associated specifically with an individual employer who's laid off during COVID-19. But we're also making sure that we ask employers to put people on temporary leave rather than lay them off permanently if they expect to bring them back. We've also expanded the work-share program so that if an employer has business and is able to operate, but simply needs to reduce hours for those employees, they can register for work-share. We'll subsidize their payroll. And the nice thing about this is that about most of the work-share participants will actually get the $600 in extra pandemic unemployment assistance as well. The state treasury has also waived some payments, particularly for tax assistance for small businesses. So they delayed collections. So for small businesses that were scheduled to make sales, use, and withholding tax payments in March and April, you can postpone that until May 20th now. Small business programs as well, and I'm going to go over a number of them that MEDC has in place. But you can find information about all of these at michiganbusiness.gov or .org, michiganbusiness.org/COVID-19. There's also a call center, 888-522-0103. So MEDC announced a couple of programs. Actually, this week, we put in place two programs in particular. that cover some specific populations that we want to make sure survive and thrive here in Michigan. First, the tech startups that we have in this state. We put $3 million into a stabilization fund for them. That's more information of that can be found at michiganbusiness.org or at tssfund.com. We also put money in place for mobility companies, right? Mobility solutions that can help address critical challenges during the COVID-19 period. Applications are open right now until midnight of April 24th. And then people can find information about that at planetm.com/test-and-pilot. MEDC put in place some programs pretty early on as well. We put a small business relief program in place that offers grants and offers loans to small businesses. That's $20 million. It's administered by the local economic development organizations across the state, 15 of them, and they've covered 83 counties with support. We know that's not enough, but it was an initial start during the first weeks of this pandemic and helped bridge, I think, the gap between what we see now coming down from the federal government. We've also put in place some funding for emergency access and retooling. So trying to make sure that people who are producing personal protective equipment or want to produce healthcare can retool their manufacturing companies and lines to do that. And then we put in place a women and minority-owned business fund of $2 million for northern initiatives through MEDC's Capital Access Program, again, to help those who are in minority and women-owned businesses survive this period of time. MichiganBusiness.org has more information on that as well. The Small Business Association loans, we were approved for that very early on because Michigan submitted an application in the first week of the crisis. Offers up to $1 billion of federal funding, low interest loans. Again, find that at michiganbusiness.org. And then the Paycheck Protection Program, which we've heard a lot about in the news, in which right now is the funding has all been spoken for. Michigan received about 25,000 loans and about $7.3 billion. We know that the federal government is looking at refunding this, recapitalizing this. And so for those who were maybe not accepted in that first round, we're urging you to go to mipaycheckprotection.com. Again, mipaycheckprotection.com. Find out more about what it's going to take to get you in the door. And then we're looking to make sure we work with our delegation in Congress so that money is going to come to Michigan at higher rates. So I'll end there and I'll ask what questions there might be.
Yeah, thank you so much for reviewing all that information. It was really helpful. We do have a lot of important questions that we'll try and get through. The first one that we received a couple of them is we've tried calling a large amount of times and we're sitting in the queue. What can we do to try and get through?
So we understand it's frustrating right now with 25% of the state's workforce trying to call in and trying to register and trying to get benefits. The vast majority of people have gotten those benefits, and we're committed to making sure that everyone does. What we ask you to do is just continue to be patient. The best thing you can do, the easiest way you can have your problem solved is to go online at michigan.gov/UIA. The phone lines, we're trying to reserve those for individuals who don't have an online solution. They may not have access to a computer and need to file a claim. But for those people who need password resets, who need an authentication code, there's a specific way for a prompt will come up in your account. You can fill out a form and people will look at that and help you reset your password, get an authentication code. If you're having an issue because you had a non-monetary issue with your benefits claim, what we have to do for that, for instance, is go in and an individual within UIA has to review your claim. That's things like you may have had an employer who has challenged your ability to get claims. You may have an issue with, someone has stolen your identity or there's an identity issue. There will be prompts of what more information we might need from you. So make sure you go onto your MyWham account at michigan.gov/UIA and provide us that information. And then we're getting as quickly as possible to review those. So for folks who haven't had a review yet, just sit tight. I know, it's tough during this time when we all are looking for what the future is going to bring and the need for those emergency funds. But we promise you we're going to get you help as quickly as possible.
Thank you, thank you. And the next two questions, we received a couple questions in the question box. I've also received these same questions via email, so I want to make sure we can touch on them today. The first one is, if they are a small business right now and they can't be open due to the executive order, can they file for unemployment and still receive the Paycheck Protection Program, or does that disqualify them?
So they're not mutually exclusive, but again, what I would say is if you're a small business owner, you file a 1099, or you're an independent contractor or something like that, you are now eligible to file for pandemic unemployment assistance through UIA. And so what you want to do is go on and file that claim. For the PPP loans, again, I would suggest you go. I'm going to move the screen back up to that page because I think it's so important. That mipaycheckprotection.com, which has a lot of information on this program, what eligibility you have, and has some other resources for you to get specific answers to your questions.
Perfect. And I think this website will be a great resource for a lot of questions that are coming in.
Yep.
So definitely something that I would suggest taking a look at. This may be another question that we need to refer back to this website, but I received a couple emails about it, so I figured we might as well try and get some clarification. If they are an employer, but their employees have filed for unemployment, they know that this does affect the PPP, but how should they go about this process? They don't want to bring them back too soon and then they end up not being qualified for the PPP, and then all the employees have to go back on unemployment and go through that whole process again. We received a lot of questions on what should be the process. Should we file for the PPP and wait till we see it, and until then just let all of our employees stay on unemployment? What would be your suggestion for this?
So I think at this point, we are still waiting for some federal guidance on some of these questions, right? We don't administer the PPP program. That's the Small Business Administration. That's the federal government. And so the Small Business Administration has been a little overwhelmed itself in answering these questions. What I would say is, I would have people file for unemployment, and then I would ask that question as you receive your small business loan. There is a time window for you to be able to bring your employees back, before you have to bring your employees back and put them on payroll. So we're hoping that the Small Business Administration is going to give us that clarity in the next few weeks, and in the time frame that you need to get that information. We're kind of a victim of this same lag in information from U.S. Department of Labor on the CARES Act, for instance. It took them more than a week and a half to get us information on how to actually start processing people on pandemic unemployment assistance, those newly eligible 1099s. And while Michigan is one of the first to do that, some states are still trying to figure out how to adjust their systems based upon the new information coming from DOL, and they haven't even announced a time when people can come in.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that makes sense. Wow. Thank you for clarifying that. We greatly appreciate it. We had another question that I think would be important to touch on again. We received a couple questions about the WorkShare program. Would you mind reviewing that again and maybe discussing how this exactly works and the application process?
Yeah, so you can go to michigan.gov/workshare to find out more information about the WorkShare program. But the general outline is this: if you've reduced your employees' hours by as little as 15% and up to 45%, you are eligible to enter into the WorkShare program with us to have them get a portion of their payroll through the unemployment system. So subsidizing your payroll, subsidizing their wages. The nice thing is if all are eligible for this, then they would also get the $600 in pandemic unemployment assistance that's coming down from the federal government up until the end of July when that expires. So the WorkShare program can be a great asset in bringing people, keeping people in the workforce and then bringing them back potentially when you're ready to rehire.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you for clarifying that. I do think that seems like a great resource for a lot of our members, so thank you. Another question we received is, What happens when you're denied for unemployment? What is the notification process for that? They said they filed for unemployment, but they're not sure if they were denied or not.
So if they file for unemployment, there will be an immediate determination of monetary determination, right? And so either we will say you're approved, or we'll say it's pending a non-monetary issue or a monetary issue. And so you should log on to your account, your MyWham account, to see what that information says. There's an indication there, a prompt. But generally, if you haven't received your benefits yet, you probably have a non-monetary issue for why you've been denied. There's two reasons. Either you have a non-monetary issue, or you applied before we had the pandemic unemployment assistance in place. And so you would have been denied because you weren't eligible, right? You were a 1099 worker, you were self-employed, that type of thing. If you're a 1099 worker or a self-employed individual and you've applied and been denied, you can go back in and you can fill out the pandemic unemployment assistance application, which should be in your inbox in your MyWham account. And then if you were denied, or you're right now waiting on a non-monetary issue, again, that's where we have to have a person review your account and make a determination on whether there is an issue that needs further review, or that you would be eligible. So for instance, people who have a work history which may have been incomplete, or that we may have not gotten the records for, we just need to make sure that someone has eyes on that, because what has happened in the past is if we make a non-monetary determination and we approve you in error, then you have to pay us back that money. We don't want that to happen right now. And we never want that to happen to someone where we pay them and then have to pull the money back.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. We received another question, and I believe it is true, but just to get clarification, if a business right now is deemed essential, but still is deemed unessential, but still have some layoffs due to the pandemic, those employees would still qualify for unemployment, correct?
So any layoff right now should qualify for unemployment. Yep, that's right.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying. Let me see if I'm going to update it and see if we see any more. I think we went through the majority of the questions. If there's any more questions, feel free to email me and I can shoot Jeff an email or his assistant and get some more clarification. But Jeff, we greatly appreciate your time, and I think we answered the majority of the questions. So thank you so much. And we appreciate you taking the time to just walk us through this process a little bit more.
Happy to be here. And, again, we're committed to making sure everybody gets their unemployment benefits. And we appreciate the patience that people are showing as we process this historic amount of claims. We know that people are out there hurting and suffering, and we're not going to rest until everybody gets their benefits.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And we appreciate that. And right now, I think it's a new time for everyone. And patience right now is key for everyone, and just trying to work through this pandemic together.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for joining. And if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to me at banderson@easternmichigan.org. Other than that, have a great rest of your day. Thank you all for your time.